364. Less than 1 year remained in the jail sentence of Gerald Shea. Gerald stared at these 3 digits etched in the wall of his gray jail cell. So many other numbers surrounded the 364, and they all seemed to blend in with one another. 6. The number of raw iron bars that stood between Gerald's decaying body and mind, the dusty halls of KateUptown Penitentiary, and the outside world that he so desperately yearned for. 142. The number of robotic guards, inmates, and janitors that Gerald saw on any given day. 0. The amount of people Gerald was glad to see per day. 8. The number of pocket-sized notebooks Gerald had filled out in his first year and a half of prison with thoughts, ideas, and creations that he doodled. Infinity. The number of things Gerald wished to do other than waste away in the depths of a South Dakota prison. He was a scrawny man, but not weak in the slightest. Gerald Shea never won awards for his toughness, yet nobody dared to test his boundaries. He had a large bulging scar on the right side of his cheek, a mark that distracted viewers from the rest of his face. Gerald was bright, witty, and appeared to have an understanding of human society. Nobody had the guts to approach the old man, but everybody seemed intrigued about the prospect of picking his brain. Gerald was a celebrity, you might say. Among everything else, however, Gerald Shea was an innovator. Vocally displeased with the world, Gerald had a passion for trying to change it. He did this silently, and clearly had no interest in sharing his thoughts to those around him. He was a religious man, who wore a tarnished silver cross around his neck at all times and always seemed to be whispering to himself. Aside from this, however, he displayed no signs of luxury. Every day, Gerald and the prisoners made the 3/4 of a mile march from the prison gates to the mine. He always walked alone. Whenever a daring inmate made an attempt to converse with him, Gerald seemed bothered, almost self-conscious and embarrassed to speak, and would cover the bulging scar with his withered fingers. He did, however, take an interest in the enormous hawk that circled the sky every morning as it gracefully flew from the mountains to the prison to the lake and back. He would smile as he looked at the hawk, and appeared in a daydream as he walked with his eyes gazed at the sky. Obviously, everybody within KateUptown Penitentiary shared a curiosity about the life of Gerald Shea. Veteran officers cited large-scale tax fraud as his reason for being in the penitentiary. As it goes, Gerald won the lottery at age 34 and claimed his luck was part of a special plot of God. He demanded that God drew his winning numbers so he would have the funding to change the world with his inventions. 7 years later, Gerald was convicted of tax fraud from not paying a single cent of gift tax to the South Dakota state government. Just 2 days before he was sentenced to jail, Gerald's lucky numbers were drawn again. He pleaded he had a conversation with God, and God chose him to be the next savior. In a 6/8 vote, the jurors of South Dakota sent him to the KU penitentiary for 5 years and called him nothing more than a lunatic. While guards removed him from the court and policemen handcuffed him, Gerald shouted obscenities at the audience and lashed out in a hysterical protest. Tripping on himself, Gerald fell to the floor and suffered a deep gash in the right side of his face. Gerald never let that scab fully heal as sacrilege to his mistreatment. When one day a daring inmate snuck into the cell of Gerald Shea and started skimming through his booklets of doodles, Gerald walked in and, overcame with emotion, snatched the dusty booklet out of the criminal's hand. After simply staring at him for upwards of 10 seconds, Gerald slowly returned the book to the man before finally dropping it to the floor and falling on his knees. "Listen," he whispered, in a soft voice that spoke with wisdom and honesty. "We can escape. All of us. We'll all be gone by tomorrow." His voice rose, then dropped off suddenly. "What did you read, boy?" he barked as his eyes narrowed in on the criminal's dirty face. The criminal, without taking his eyes off Gerald, slowly opened the book and painted to page 49, a sketch or diagram with violently illegible annotations. "God has invested in me the power to change the world. I will see you by 11 a.m. tomorrow." Sir, the inmate jumbled, but didn't know quite what he wanted to say. Rather, he extended his hand in instinct as to offer his trust and compliance. James Ryan," he said. Without moving, Gerald simply repeated himself. 11 o'clock. God bless."